So, welcome everybody to What Mediums Want You to Know. We're so happy to be back and to have you here with us.
Yeah. Just to give you a little bit of background on this, Carissa and I met back in like 2013, 2014. And in the beginning of 2015, we started doing demonstrations of mediumships together up and down the East Coast. And then COVID came along, as you are all aware, in 2020, and we started doing online demonstrations of mediumship, but we also decided at that time, wouldn't it be fun to have conversations with people about what mediums want you to know? So we started this program, we did some episodes back around COVID time, and then life just kind of changed and we stopped doing it. And recently we said, doing this so much. We love the interaction from people that joined us for it. And so we wanted to bring it back. So we're really excited that so many of you have decided to join us tonight.
There's definitely a space in readings where we're so focused on connecting to your loved ones and what they have to say and making sure you get the right message from the right person and all the things that they have to say. I think any of you that have seen Carol and I work know that we talk quickly. We try to get a lot of information out. And so there's this space where we don't get to answer questions, just general questions about our work, about the spirit world, about the process, about how things work in general. So that's why our intent was to create these events to be able to fill that space. And I think one of the cool things is we always get some of the same questions, but we also always get some really unique questions every time. And no matter how many times we've done this so far, we keep getting unique ones. So we're back to get some more. So hopefully you guys brought some great questions with you tonight, but we're happy to have you here. And
Just
tonight's
a,
topic, oh yeah,
uh,
go ahead.
can I just make a quick note? We have a message from Denise that there's a lot of severe feedback from both of us on this. So we just wanted to check in with everybody and see if everybody's getting feedback when Carissa and I are speaking.
Yeah, go ahead and raise your hand if you're getting feedback because I'm not hearing any. It be if you have more than one device tuned in to the webinar that you're getting feedback from that.
Yeah.
Okay, I think yeah, it doesn't seem like a group issue, which is a good thing because
Okay.
we
Okay.
honestly wouldn't know how to help you. You can
Yeah.
always, Denise, you can always log off and then log back in. The webinar will be open for as long as we're here for the hour. So feel free to do that. But we're happy to have you here with us. And let me quickly, before I forget, go over the tech pieces. The way to interact with us today is on the bottom, you'll see there's a Q&A button. Why do I not have it? It was there earlier. Now it is gone. Um, Hopefully you have a Q&A button. If not, I'll fix that shortly. But okay, you do. There you go. I'm seeing it. It was just closed. But there we go. You can obviously everybody's already figured it out. So what we'll ask is that while we're the first half of this, while we're going over sort of like the talking points that we have that we want to share with everybody, try to keep your questions on topic and then we will open it up to just general Q&A. Anything you want to ask, you can ask. So just while we're speaking, try to stay on topic if you can. But thank you for figuring out the Q&A. That's what's going to work better than the chat.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's all I have to say about tech. Keep
Yeah.
it simple, keep it easy.
Yeah. So I cut you off when you were about to say what tonight's topic is about. So if you want to finish that sentence.
Oh, this tonight's topic is essentially our top 5 lessons from the spirit world. And the thing I love about this is Carol and I together have a combined almost 30 years of experience now. And I've done talks with this exact topic before many years ago, and my lessons have changed. I think a lot of the themes are the same, but they do change and shift over time. So, yeah, they're a little bit different as we continue to do more readings and learn more from the spirit world.
I think it's important that you bring that up, Carissa, too, because, as both of us being teachers, we're teaching from our own experiences, and that's what we have to teach from. We can't teach from other people's experiences. We're not going to teach from what other people tell us is true, but we don't have any, experience to show that to ourselves. So we're just teaching from our own experiences. And just know if whatever we say resonates with you, that's fantastic. But maybe your experiences are different. So we're just asking you, like, you don't have to believe everything that we say, but we're asking you to be curious about it and see if you dig into the curiosity, does it make sense to you? So just want to throw that out there.
Yeah, love that. All right. Well, I'm going to start with my first piece here, which is honestly one of my favorite parts. I think that the hard thing about spirituality is sort of we can exist outside of the lines of religion, but people don't necessarily assume that we do or we can. There's a lot of overlap, of course, for a lot of people, but I don't think that there needs to be. So for me, I find such great comfort in my top lesson is you're never alone, literally never alone. And for somebody that doesn't have a strict, I was brought up Catholic, but I don't associate myself as Catholic anymore, or really as anything other than sort of agnostic, which I think most people are surprised about when mediums, they sort of assume that we have a sense of the divine. And I've definitely spent periods of my life that way. But for me, what feels right now is saying that I don't know. And that's really the honest truth is nobody truly knows. I have a tendency to believe what I can see, hear, feel in some way, shape, or form, right? So for mediums, that's through our our clairs, our clairaudience, our clairvoyance, the way that we interpret and experience spirit through those psychic senses. And through that, I have been brought so many messages over the years, and people's moments of greatest weakness, how their loved ones were with them and surrounding them in support and spirit. And to me, that was enough comfort. That was really all I needed to know that there, of course, we want to experience our loved ones in the same way that we did when they were incarnated, when they were here in body. And that's where we experience grief because we miss how the relationship was and how we're used to them and having them here with us in physical body. And really being able to use our earthly senses to be able to experience them. But once you can sort of suspend yourself from that being the only option, there is this space where you can accept that the relationship continues, things look different, it feels different. And of course, we want signs, right? We know how much we all, self included, love signs from our loved ones. But let's be honest, they're also not always available, right? I mean, not meaning them, but maybe the signs aren't available. Maybe our attention is so distracted. Maybe we're so depressed at that moment with whatever we're going through that no matter how hard they may try to sort of direct our attention to a sign, we're unreachable in those moments. And what I've seen in readings is through those moments we feel the most unreachable when people tell me I was so sad that night. I feel him every night in bed beside me, but I just couldn't feel him last night. And I was so sad. I started to really see this space. You'll hear people talk about beyond the veil. I always tell people the veil is grief. Grief is what separates us from being able to recognize that they're with us right there in that moment. And what they'll often show me is before somebody will say, I'm struggling to feel him here or to hear her there, uh, they'll show me a memory of saying, oh, would you let her know I was there during this time? And then I'll hear from my client, oh, I didn't know they were there. I didn't think they were there at all. I was talking to them. I was asking. I felt nothing, sensed nothing. Maybe they've had other periods of time where it was much more visceral, where they were able to feel the warmth or feel the connection when they were speaking. And then there's just moments where we don't. And I tend to think that that's likely our nervous system, our minds being distracted, or like I said, lack of environmental cues for them to pull on or, direct our awareness to. But it's in those moments that I really believe that they're most with us. They're most prevalent anytime we're experiencing sadness, grief, despair, loneliness. So it made me think of loneliness in general as different. And instead of fearing loneliness, which I think a lot of us do. I mean, it's something that everybody experiences, whether it's momentary, whether it's years of just after you have a significant loss. I tend to find myself not necessarily seeking that feeling, but when that feeling comes, I know to remind myself how surrounded I am and to just take a moment, doesn't even have to be full meditation, but to really ground myself and give myself an opportunity to know that they're there, even if I don't have the senses to experience them that way. I have the knowingness to know that they are there.
Yeah. I think I love bring something that they've seen of my client's life that's like in the last day or two even sometimes. There was one that was really fun the other night. This father came through in spirit and was talking about a pretty like gave quite a bit of detail about something that had happened just the night before about a bird coming at the windshield. And it wasn't like a small bird, he's like, this is like a majestic bird coming at the windshield. And like you just seen it the night before. And what we expect those in spirit to bring up about our lives are like the weddings, the graduations, and those big things, right? And they will bring that up. But I love it when they bring up the little things that you are totally not expecting. Like a woman who came for a reading and her husband came through and said, I saw you at the dentist yesterday. And like you were being a baby when they were trying to fill that cap. And she was like, oh my gosh, like, because those are the random things. Like, how did anybody know that she was at the dentist the day before or something like that? So I love it when they bring up those little things just as a reminder to their loved ones. I'm here for the big things, but I'm here for the little things too. I've never left your side. And when you talk about awareness, that's come up a lot today too. I was actually just doing a video about it earlier because that came up in a lot of my readings today too, of people feeling like I'm not noticing them around. And like you said, life is so hectic for us that our awareness is not there. And our awareness is really our key to recognizing that they're here. And so I always like to teach people a little exercise. We do this in my classes and stuff, but I call it noticing senses, and love to do it outside, where we just sit outside and I say, just look around and notice the things that you never notice with your eyes. Right? It could be something small. It could be an airplane flying over, or a bird, or maybe even a hawk that's sitting across the road from my building looking at us or something. And then I go through each senses. After we look around, I say, close your eyes and listen to what you hear. And spend a few minutes doing that. And we start to notice as we go through each sense, like practicing each sense, we're like, wow, I never noticed those things before. I didn't notice the sound that a truck makes when it's going by, or the sound that the clock is making in my room, in the room that I'm in. We just miss those things, and those things give a lot of information to us too, and it's a great way for our loved ones to like remind us that they're here.
Yeah.
So
And any of you that have struggled with anxiety and been in therapy will know that that exercise as well, right? Take a moment and go through all your senses to kind of get your anxiety to come back down. So really, what are we doing? We're coming back to the present moment. And it's the same thing when you're teaching people in that way, right? It's we have to be present to notice their signs, to be able to feel the shifts in awareness and attention coming from them, because we spend so much time not being present. I mean, my God, if they could text us, we would all be fine, right?
yeah,
Nobody ignores a text anymore. So it's like you get the ding, 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 you'd just be great. But really coming back to the present moment is what's going to allow you to notice those signs. Yeah. Whether it's, like you said, a bird or
yeah.
whatever it might be.
Whatever it may be. And some people are like, well, that noise was there. And I'm like, yeah, but what if your loved one in spirit was like using it to try to get you to think of them?
Right.
That's all we need. That's all we need to let us know that they're here. Is just something that made us think of them. And they're like, did it? I got them to think of me, in this moment.
Yeah.
And we want to brush it away and go, well, that sign was there anyway, literal sign, on the streets corner that says their name or whatever. But they are using that as reminders to us that they're still around.
Yeah, signs are a language, really, because it's not, my grandmother uses the cardinal. My grandmother isn't a cardinal. And in those moments when she's trying to get my attention, I really just feel it's just a whisper of her energy that comes by that just somehow gets me to turn, and maybe a whisper to the bird that just gets to that moment of alignment, that sort of crossover, and it becomes a language of its own. And once we learn to speak it, and the more that we're willing to speak it, the more we're willing to become fluent in it.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to.
It doesn't always have to be the sign that we think, though. Like today, I was
Mm,
getting out of my car. I opened the car door and stepped down, and there was a penny on the ground. And I said, oh, thanks, Dad. And pennies are not what I usually consider my sign from my dad. He leaves me dimes, right? But it made me think of my dad. And that doesn't mean I'm wrong that it wasn't my dad because it wasn't a dime. It's just whatever, I saw that penny, it made me think of him. And so I know that he was around trying to get me to think of him, you know?
absolutely.
So we
Yeah.
can't get stuck on it has to be a particular sign or they're not around. Really, anything that makes you think of them is their way of letting you know that they're around.
Absolutely. Just like a lot of times where, whether it's a partner or somebody that you've spent a really long time with living that has passed, a lot of my clients will tell me when they have that clearest communication is when they've said something, like they dropped a plate and they're just like, okay, go ahead and laugh, Willie. And then you hear clear as day the response, oh, I'm laughing, all right. Or, whatever it is exactly they would say, you hear it in their tone, in their voice, and it's coming directly from them. It's just because at that moment you'd carved this pathway to shift your attention to them, and it was effortless. It was not with any sense of pressure. It was a directness of your thoughts, and you opened up the line of communication, so it just came through. And people get so excited, they go, I want it to happen again. Right, but there's a magic in that moment, and you can, through practice and in different ways, encourage those moments to happen more. But there is an incidental magic in that moment of effortlessness and open communication.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So, shall we move on to number two
go for
lesson?
it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so the number two lesson, one that I love, is that there is nothing evil in the spirit realm. What I found from, Chris and I have both been doing this a long time, and we've both done thousands of readings. And I can say for sure for myself, I have never encountered anything evil in the spirit world. And Carissa, can you say the same?
Same. Nothing.
Yeah.
Even though I've
So
tried.
early on in my work, people sometimes would ask me to come to their home or their space, their workspace or whatever, because there was something going on there and they wanted me to come and help them understand what it was. And for my experiences, it was always one of two things. One, it was either a loved one of their own. Once I got there and I started telling them about who it was in spirit that was there and communicating with them, they would be like, "Oh my gosh, that's my dad," or "That's my uncle," or whatever. It was always a loved one of theirs, and I was like, "Well, do you still want him to leave?" And they're like, "No," But they were frightened because what society has taught us is if you can't see it, you can't feel it, you can't identify it, then you better be scared of it. So that's where our fear comes from, is just these old lessons that we've learned about, like, we don't know what it is, so we should be afraid. Now, the second situation that has happened when it wasn't a loved one is that it wasn't even a spirit. It was what we call old residual energy. So if you think about like walking into a room where two people have just been arguing, you walk in, they're not arguing with each other anymore, but you can still feel that energy in that room. You feel the heaviness of it, you feel the argument. That's what old residual energy is. It's like coming into a space where maybe there was drug use or domestic abuse or, some mental illness or something that was going on in that space before. And so it leaves this heaviness in the space. And that's not an intelligent spirit that's going to do anything to you or anything. It's just old energy. It's like the memory of the space. So that can sometimes be frightening to people, especially those who are empaths, pick up on those feelings when they're around people. Maybe they're around a person who is holding a lot of fear throughout their life and feel heaviness because of their fear, or in a place or in a situation, but that's like energy is not a person in spirit. There's a difference between those two things. So, is there more you want to say on that,
Absolutely.
Carissa?
Yeah, just, that I totally agree. And it's interesting that there's certain situations that seem to harbor that energy more than others. I especially think repressed traumas, right, seem to really make a stain energetically, and something that a lot of us can feel or bump into, like you said, as empaths, intuitives, whatever it might be. But there seems to be that's the highest category, I would say. I mean, we've been lucky enough to have other mediums and friends who've even gone on sort of exorcisms with Catholic Church members and things of that nature, that would openly say, like, absolutely there was never anything there other than repressed sexual abuse or repressed trauma from this situation, and it will find a way to manifest in the atmosphere, right? So if you can't talk about it, you can't acknowledge it, it's going to be felt. And so it's just sort of amplified through that inability to be able to come out and be processed in any way, shape, or form. And anybody that has any trauma knows that you have to acknowledge it and process it yourself in some way, shape, or form, or else it's going to keep sitting under your skin and causing trouble. And I really think energetically this is very akin to that. there's so much crossover with nervous system work and our psyche and healing. I think the other piece is, like you were saying, Carol, like we're taught to fear. Horror is our biggest movie industry that we have, right? It sells, and I think it can be really tremendously therapeutic. So I have no shame there if you love that. But also, there's this biological hardwired aspect of our nervous system that is ingrained in us, that has from the caveman days told us that if we can't see anything with our earthly senses, feel it, you know, touch it with our hands or hear it directly, then absolutely it's a threat. And we have to perceive that threat in our nervous system to be able to save our lives and act accordingly. So some of that is also just automatic. You really don't even have an opportunity to shift that when you're a young person, that might experience that thick residue of energy in a room that feels particularly nasty, or like you said, even just a loved one like a grandfather in the room that you never met in life, but they just are standing there at the edge of your bed. You're going to perceive that as a young person as fearful. So that's what I like to invite people to do, is like adjust the framework. Is there somewhere you can lean into the experiences that you had that may have been frightening, or you may have called a haunting, and can you see it from a different perspective? There's always other things at play. And like you said, we have both had so many different experiences where people have felt that true sense of feeling haunted or feeling cursed or something like that, and we get into those situations, and oftentimes there is a clincher of like, hey, I've had experiences, I'm sure you have too, where it's, hey, you have an abusive partner, this loved one in spirit really is trying to get your attention to say you need to take care of yourself, you need to get to a safe place away from this person, or it's not always that dramatic either, but there is a reason for contact when it is coming from your loved ones. They're never intending to scare you. Do I occasionally get some playful energy between brothers and sisters where they're kind of like, yeah, I know I scared her when she was walking to the bathroom the other night, right? But like, it's a joke and they know you're not truly terrified, and it's not something they would do to provoke fear. But
Mhm.
sometimes personality crosses over too, right? And they love to pull a couple strings.
Yeah. Yeah. But I have had people ask me questions too about like, well, have you ever connected with somebody in the spirit world who did things that were not kind here in the physical world? Yes, I have connected with somebody who was in jail for murder while they were here in the physical world. I have connected with more than a few people who were sexual abusers while they were here in the physical world. At no time did I feel any threat or fear from anything that made me fearful of any of those people in the spirit world. In fact, they shared how much they learned and understood from the things that they did in the physical world. And anytime that they've come through, it's to give apology to their loved ones, for not because that they're asking for forgiveness and, oh, you need to let me off the hook with it. It's never ever been about that. It's always been about, I want to take the weight off of you, my client who's sitting there with me, and help you recognize you did not hold responsibility for my behaviors. So that's always been the message, not always in those exact words, but I have never had anybody that came through from the spirit side who, even though they may have done things in this physical world that we would not consider nice and, would be something they might have gone to jail for or something like that, they still have not come through to be fearful or angry or ever say anything mean. So,
Yeah. And that is fascinating. I mean, I think people are shocked with that. I mean, like you said, we've both worked with abusers, murderers, and they really don't feel any different than other people. Of course, their actions are evil, right? We can acknowledge that. And like Carol said, they want to take accountability. That's the goal here. But it's just, I think there's a bigger message there. That's just me extrapolating from my experiences, but um, I think there's a bigger message there, that at a soul level, we're people and we get to make the choice about whether we want our actions to be loving and kind or cruel.
yeah, yeah. Well, I think that takes us right into your next one.
Mm. Yeah, this is a tough one to sort of summarize, but I would say number 3 for me is your work matters here. And I don't mean your vocation or anything to do with that in any way, shape, or form. I really mean your healing work, your intentional, emotional, psychological, spiritual, and sometimes even physical work that you do here. It matters even if you don't see the fruits in an obvious state here in this physical world. There's been many times where I've had addicts that unfortunately, or maybe they weren't even truly dealing with addiction as the source of the issue, but more so from stemming from an untreated mental health issue that they were self-medicating with drugs. That had so many people pass away from overdose, that want to come back and say to, usually my client, you called, you tried to stop me, you tried to get me to go to rehab, or maybe you succeeded in getting me to rehab. Maybe I was sober for a period of time, but then I relapsed and then I passed away from it. But that those instances of intervention, those reach outs, they matter, even if they didn't produce the outcome of safety or lack of harm or your loved one still being here in the physical world. They still matter to the soul and to the spirit of that person and to the family system as a whole. There are times, and I think it's nobody wants to really talk about it, but there's times where people have endured such trauma that there's only so much that they're going to be able to work through in their lifetime here. And of course, some of that's going to get passed on to their children and the next generation. And so they still have this view, this bird's eye view, if you want to look at it that way, of us here playing out some of those cycles, even if it's at 10% of what their 100% was. And just know that when you're doing that healing work, it ricochets through multiple generations, even to the origin point. And there's relief, there's joy, there's celebration, but there's also just awe and respect for you to be able to take some of the responsibility in your own hands and say, I'm going to do this work. So really, for me, it goes both ways. The intervention that we have here with people in the physical world, the contacts, the conversations, the way that you treat people is your currency here. And the moments that you spend with people that sometimes you think are meaningless, the smile, and you don't know that that person was going to go home and take their life or whatever it might be, that is the work. And it matters even when you don't see it. Even when that person passes too soon, it matters to their soul. It matters to the kindnesses they experience. And sometimes it becomes the entryway for them to be able to achieve and receive being compassionate towards their own self and their own soul as soon as they get to the other side.
Yeah. Um, the work matters for everybody. I always tell people who are taking my classes, if you want to develop your intuition, develop your psychic, develop your mediumship even more, the healing work is going to be really, really important. And it all comes rising up when we start working on those abilities, right? And so we both know, like, I had to do a lot of healing work. I'd gone through 30 years of severe depression before I realized that this mediumship was what I was supposed to be doing. And so I had to go deep into some healing work to open myself up to this and to get past vulnerability and all that kind of thing. But it continues on, like we're never done with it. Karissa knows, and I think there's some of my friends here that I recently met a couple of weeks ago in a workshop that I went to, a healing workshop, that I had some profound changes just a few weeks ago and ahas of things that I thought I had done deep healing work on already, and more was coming up about it. And some of that is about using my voice to speak up, and some is about vulnerability and judgment, all the things that I thought I'd done so much work about still coming up for me. So it's never done either. And I always say with this work, when stuff comes up that bothers us, triggers us, makes us upset about something, that is the universe saying, here's an opportunity for healing. This is not darn it, they're throwing more healing work at me. This is a yay. This is more opportunity to grow and be who I'm supposed to be in this lifetime, and help with the things that I want to do, because the more healing I do, the more I'm going to grow with my own abilities. Okay. Somebody's asked about classes, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out too, that like it's important for all of us in all of our lives. And for those students who I know I have some students that are on this call, and you probably do too, that are wondering like, yeah, we have to continue on with the healing work. We can't push that aside and try to ignore it. We won't grow in our own skills if we do that. So
Yeah, and also remembering that like healing is a a journey, right? We say that all the time, but what does that mean? There's no destination point, right? We're all going to end up on the other side and we're all going to be able to have healing when we get there. There's no destination point of being healed here in the physical world. We know that we're working towards that. We're working towards the idea of enlightenment, if you want to look at that, to be able to see things from as many perspectives as possible, compassionate and kind, loving presence here while we're here. But just knowing that healing is the destination. The journey is the destination in and of itself. And I think, Carol, we have both tried so many different modalities that comes up a lot too. People want to know like what's the most spiritual, what's the best, what's going to get me there the fastest, or how does that going to work? And there's no right or wrong answer. It's what works for you.
mhm.
You did not have like you've done therapy, but you didn't have like the best experiences with therapy.
No, I didn't. Like, I didn't find that I was getting deep into healing, And for some people, therapy is great. It just wasn't working. I went through many years of it and antidepressants and all of the things because I was so severely depressed. Um, but what I did a few weeks ago, breath work, phenomenal changes in 1 week. So, like, I highly recommend it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely have
Yeah.
had profound changes with breath work too. It's amazing. But
Yeah.
also therapy worked for me. I've done therapy since I was in five because of a long-term custody battle. And it was a goal of just I don't know, it was a guardian for me in a lot of ways. And so I still find it helpful
Yeah.
when needed. But yeah, so it's what works for you. There's no right or wrong answer in any way that you're trying to attend to your psyche and your soul and your spirit is spiritual, as
Yeah.
long as it's not hurting you or anybody else.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so many different modalities. You just got to go toward what you're pulled for. And, like when opportunities come up for healing, like if it's catching your attention, there's a reason why. I always say curiosity is our intuition's way of nudging us towards something. So if something comes up that you're curious about, investigate, you know, and see if
And
that
don't
works.
be afraid to say if it's not for you, right? We
Yeah.
both walked away from different things that were like, that this isn't exactly my jam, and that's okay. There's other people that might be having profound experiences with it, but it's just not for us. Nothing can be for everybody, just like we can't be the right medium for every person in the world or every spirit. That's why we need so many of us.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's keep going because I know that we're getting
Yeah.
a little bit past our time and people are going to want to ask questions here. So, one of the things, and I think everybody's heard both of us say this before, that everybody has abilities, right? Everybody has intuition. There's nobody that missed the boat on that in this entire world. Everybody has it. Now, society has kind of influenced us away from using the intuition and moving more to the logical mind. But if we think about it, a lot of times that logical mind, when it overrides the intuition, like we just know something, but then we let the logical mind override it with fear-based thoughts or worries that are probably never even going to come to be. But then it creates all this confusion for us of like, oh, now I don't know what to do. And maybe I need to ask somebody else's opinion on this or have somebody else tell me what to do. The truth is you don't need anybody else. You already have the answers within you. And each of us too can take that intuition and build it into psychic and mediumistic abilities. Some people are meant to do it professionally. It's just like some people are, I always use this example, Karissa knows this, but some people are meant to be professional soccer players. That doesn't mean that all of us couldn't go out and kick the ball around a little bit, and enjoy it and have fun. But maybe we don't want to put the hours and hours of practice in and eat all the right things and do all the things that we need to do to become a professional soccer player. Same thing goes with this. Any of us can go out there and experience it and use it, in ways that help us in our own life or give us joy. But some people are going to be very driven because it's their soul's purpose here, and they're going to want to put every ounce of everything they have into developing, you know, and that's just
Yeah.
because their soul wants it. I've had a lot of people say to me, well, am I supposed to be a professional psychic medium? And I'm like, your soul will give you that answer if you're driven to really practice all the time to go beyond the comfort zone because it's not comfortable to practice it or get better at it. To do all the things that we need to do to get better, then yeah, your soul's probably really wanting this. But if it doesn't, then that's okay. You use it for the ways that are helpful to you in life. So yeah,
Yeah.
just my 2 cents on it.
Yeah. And that classes, like, I love that. I feel like that's so important is that classes help you understand yourself better, regardless of what the end goal is. And, I think, well, both of us, we didn't even have an end goal when we started our classes. We didn't
Right.
expect to be here. This wasn't the intent. It
Yeah.
just, the path unfolded before us.
Right. We never knew what was going to be at the, like, and we're still not at the end of the journey. Please, I
That's true.
don't think I'm there.
Me
We're
either.
still, things are still, you never know what's to come. But even though we're psychic, you
Just
know,
not that kind.
yeah, we just like to roll with it, see what comes
Yeah,
up.
absolutely. And that's all classes really are about, right? Investigating yourself. So,
Mhm. Yeah.
but
And
Maria,
learning
I
to
see your
find that,
question.
answer within yourself, because I think we all learn to stop giving our power to other people and think that other people have the right answers for us, because we all have the answer within ourselves. It's just we want somebody to confirm it for us because we're not fully trusting of ourselves. So, just focusing on like just trusting. When you get information, trust it. Yeah.
Such a powerful point, though. If
Mhm.
you're going to develop it yourself and take your own intuition and advice. But Maria, I see your question. Yes, I will have some classes coming up at the end of the summer going into fall. Would love to have you, but also Carol has lots of ongoing in-person and online classes too. So highly recommend, either one of our classes, but mine are going to be pushed out a little bit because I'm about to move again. And Carol has got a bunch going on ongoing right now. So, because she's moves a little bit less often than I do. Thank
Like I
goodness.
think it's been almost 30 years since I moved. So a lot less often than you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a lot, but life takes you in all sorts of different directions. All right. So our final point was probably not going to surprise anybody here, but I hope that our twist on it will. Love never dies. And Carol has been saying that for years, and we use it as a tagline now because it's so true and it's beautiful. And love can't die, energy can only transform. And what we mean by that really is not, of course, your loved ones go on. That's why you're here talking to us. But the relationship continues, and we have to grieve. We have to allow the relationship that we had with them here in the physical world to end. And that is a huge pain point. And the grief, no matter how good you are at knowing your loved ones are in spirit communicating with you can't escape the grief. It will still be there and still be there that you something you need to process. But allowing space to come in to develop a new relationship with them, since they at their core, them and their soul, their spirit is unchanged, is still here, is present with you, you can learn to have a new relationship with them and have it going
Mhm.
until you meet them on the other side too.
Yeah. I was just talking to a client today who was telling me about somebody that they know that since their husband has died, this person has ongoing conversations with them. Doesn't need a medium to be the middle person for them. Just trust conversations that are happening. And it's been so healing to this person. So, just remember the things that you hear, their voice in your head, you're not making that up, right? That's, we try to say, oh, I must be making that up. It's because I wanted. No, it's there for you. They're speaking to you. You just have to trust that they're talking to you. The visual signs that you see, the messages that you hear in songs, it's not a
Mm.
coincidence when your favorite song that you had with this person comes on, So listening to the words of it and knowing that they're talking to you, they're sharing things with you. You're not making it up. Um,
Yeah. And it takes time, right? Grief takes time. Relationships take time, just as like you took time to develop your relationship with them here in the physical. Give yourself the opportunity and the time to develop a new relationship with them in spirit. It'll happen. It just sometimes is a little bit slower than we want it to be.
Yeah. Yeah. So, um, we have some time left now. If anybody wants to put some questions in there, I saw that Bonnie was asking about the link from the last Zoom.
I think I think she means the last event we did, Bonnie. We are working on it, believe it or not. We're just not there yet. We're pretty sure we've got our answer. We're going to be using YouTube, private YouTube links, but we're in the process of that.
Okay, Lindsay has a question. Do you see that?
I do. Have either of you had any spirits share about past lives or soul contracts? I don't know that they have told me about their past lives. People's guides, when I'm in readings, will tell me about my clients' past lives sometimes, if it's relevant. And Carol knows that's like a sticky point for me. Like, I want you to make it make sense to now, because otherwise we're just dreaming here, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm the same when I'm either doing a psychic reading or typically it's with guides where guides will share something about the person's past life and maybe that's why something's coming up. Again, that's a thing that we can't prove. When we're talking to guides, there's no proof of this past life. But I think one of the things that I've learned, and even though we both have that logical side of us that is a little bit skeptical about some stuff, but I think one of the things that I've learned is that I just have to trust it, and whatever's coming through, I've learned to trust that the spirit world doesn't lie to me about stuff. They have no reason to lie about anything. So whether it's guides or loved ones, they're not going to make things up. But like Karissa said, for me, it's not usually the loved ones that are going to talk about past lives. It's usually somebody's guides that will share things about the past lives.
A great question. What would you recommend someone read, do to learn prior to taking your course? Hmm. Well, Carol happens to have a new guide that is actually perfect for developing your intuition. That would be really helpful that you could use post our courses, or before courses. I
Yeah.
think it's just a great grounded way to get your attention back on your intuition.
Yeah, it's a workbook that you can just get off my website, and it's called Let's Get Into It, and it's kind of like the beginning stuff of building your intuition. It's just some fun, little exercise that you can do. Actually, too, Chris, I forgot about this, so thank you for mentioning this. That we just got my other new course called Essentials of Awaken Your Ability. It's kind of it's before you would take Awaken Your Ability, but it does give a lot of the foundational stuff of intuition, psychic, and mediumship. So there's either one of those options. The Essentials is an online take at your own pace course. The Let's Get Into It is a workbook that you can print, download, and just kind of play with the exercises and meditations that are in there. Yeah.
Yeah. There's also some classic books, depending on what you're interested in developing, like if it specifically is mediumship or intuition. But I think we both always recommend Janet and Havoc's Where Two Worlds Meet. That's one of the classics. It's also a great book to, sort of discuss a lot of the tenets in mediumship. So
Yeah.
there's
I
lots of great
have to
stuff
tell
out
you
there.
though, I've been asked this question before of like, what was the most impactful book that you read in your development? And while there are books about mediumship and some psychic exercises and stuff, the thing I think that made the most difference for me was Brene Brown's Daring
Mm,
Greatly and The Gifts of Imperfection, like such ahas. And I think that goes back to our healing because when we are doing our healing work, it helps improve our intuitive abilities so much more. So those were
yeah.
huge for me. Like they really flipped a switch for me. So,
Yeah. I mean, I listened to all of her takes, so I feel like I can't say read it when I was audiobooking, but yes, her audiobooks, again, also life-changing. And there were so many. I think it's those aha moments, right? And like, there's no one book that's going to get you there. It's having so many different pieces other experiences that are going to flip those little tiny switches that all of a sudden bring you to an epiphany or that big aha moment. So, honestly, we should come up with like a master book list and, someday when we have the time.
Yeah. We could send like an email out to everybody that's on the list and maybe just add
Yeah.
some books onto the email.
Yeah, absolutely.
Throw some
We
book
will send
ideas in
a,
there.
yeah, yeah, that's a great idea. We can maybe send our top five books,
Yeah.
keeping in the theme, but great answer.
Yeah.
Carol, next one's for you.
Okay. I noticed you use what you see and feel during the reading. Can you talk about seeing? What do you see? Thanks. Um, so I think what you're saying, Kevin, is that like I use visual cues around the room. I think that's what you mean. By it, I do use a lot of cues around me. I'm going to give you a quick example, and the person that this happened with is actually on this call. She was in my mentorship program, and we were doing a coach reading. So she was doing the reading. I was on the Zoom call to help her, and the client was trying to talk on, he was on Zoom, and his Zoom connection was making the call really warbly, if that's the right word. Like his voice was very distorted, and I noticed that. Now, she, the student, was talking to a man in spirit who had passed in his 40s, and the client knew who it was, but he was trying to tell the student something, and we couldn't understand because his voice was very warbly. What that told me right away was that the man in spirit had problems speaking at the end of life. He wasn't able to use his voice. So, the student and I kind of had this conversation about it afterwards of like, how did you get that from it? And I said, I've spent so many years noticing things that a lot of people don't notice, and also like connecting it to how the spirit world is trying to use it to give information. They don't want us to fail in communicating with them. They want to make it as easy as possible. So they're like, notice this, notice this, notice this, and it gives information. So that's what I try to do. I try to notice a lot of the things that are going on, whether it's how I'm using my hands, where I might be like grabbing my finger like this, that could be something about a divorce or somebody taking off the ring or something. Or, if I'm rubbing my stomach and I get the sensation of my stomach growing, I know they want to talk about somebody who's pregnant, in the physical world. So yes, I do use a lot of cues, whether it's what I'm seeing in the room or hearing or feeling in my body to allow the spirit world to communicate in that way. I hope that answered your question, Kevin. I'm hoping that's what you were asking about.
Well, there's also your clairvoyance, right? So, any well-oiled medium
Mhm.
will have all of their clairs working, right? And clairvoyance is clear seeing, it's psychic seeing, and that may be subjective, where we're seeing them pictures in our heads, movies in our minds, things that they're sharing with us in that space, or objective, where like I'll see the person standing in the room outside of me, like when I'm doing readings. Private readings, they'll always be standing to my right, and oftentimes how close or how far they away they are will tell me. I mean, not always, they there's no hard rules in this, will sometimes tell me how close they were to my client, or sometimes if they're standing off to my back, all the way to my back right. Usually I'm dealing with somebody that has some sense of responsibility for their own passing, and that's their way of letting me know. So there's so many different types of seeing, like Carol saying, literally in the room, or through our psychic senses, seeing them, the spirit, sometimes describing them physically, or seeing pictures. I love when they'll show me a photograph that my loved one, I mean, my client will have of their loved one. They'll describe one of their favorite photographs. So there's so many different ways that seeing can come up in a
Yeah,
reading. Like
yeah.
it's really loud. Like we could probably do a whole session just on that.
Yeah, yeah. I'll never forget one of my favorite stories is that I had this family that was here for a reading, and the father was coming through in spirit, and he was talking to the daughter who was sitting here in my office. And as I was giving the message that he was wanted to share with her, I saw a squirrel run like through my head, like it wasn't outside of my body. I saw it within my head and my clairvoyance. And so I knew I needed to say squirrel. So I was just like, I have to say squirrel. And, she burst into tears. The rest of the family burst into laughter. That was his nickname for her, and I did see that clairvoyantly. I saw a squirrel like run in front of my, in front of my third eye. But it's like, yeah, like we can pick up things clairvoyant, objective outside of our body and inside subjectively too. So, yeah.
And to your point, which I think is so important for people to know, we don't always have any idea what it is. Like we can see it and still have absolutely no context, no idea. Like at the last group event we did together, I think like the first person I had come through was wearing a bathing suit and a floaty, like a floaty, a pool floaty around her waist. And I'm like, my I'm like, what the hell are you doing wearing that in a public event? Like, but as like jokingly, I'm going, what's going on? And she was like, cruise ships. I loved cruise ships, and that was her thing. That was her way to get my attention, to get noticed, and for me to listen to her talk about cruise ships.
Mhm.
Our own like idiosyncrasies can create sometimes barriers or buffers in communication with spirit too, right? Like I am going to have a limit. Like I hate boats. I just was born afraid of boats. Talk about past lives. That's where my past life issues go, is to boats. So I'll often ignore accidentally things about boats that are coming through. So she circumvented that by coming through in the bathing suit and the floaty to get my attention, which was actually brilliant. Got to give them a lot of credit.
Yeah. Yeah. They figure out their way to get their messages across. So, for sure.
Yes. All right, Camille, we have a great question. You just discovered us. Well, welcome. We are definitely two separate businesses, but
Hmm.
we work a lot together. I think we shared a little bit in the beginning. We met at a class, Tony Stockwell, who
Tony
we've both
Stockwell.
mentored with,
Hmm.
um, in 2014, somewhere right around that. And
Yes.
then we started working
Yeah.
together shortly after that. And Carol's honestly my dearest and closest friend,
Hmm.
soul sister, and also we get to work together. So we do it because we love to.
Yeah. And this kind of came about because Carissa and I talk all the time. Any experiences that we have, we call each other and say, like, let's discuss this and everything. And we get really excited about it, as you can tell. We get very excited about our work and everything. And so this kind of came about in the beginning of COVID because we were like, well, we love talking about it. Maybe other people would like to hear about the things that are happening for us too, so that they can understand it and apply it to their own experiences, whether it's working as a medium or just in your daily life, So that's kind of why we decided we wanted to do this and share some of it with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Ooh, great question, Susan. Is there a way to decipher between my inner voice and a message from a loved one? I know you probably say trust it, but sometimes I feel a little nutty. Girl, don't we all?
Mhm.
Okay. You can't do this work or communicate with your loved ones without occasionally questioning your own sanity. I say
Mhm.
that with a joke, but really, a lot of us do have. If you think about it too much, you're going to talk yourself into it being crazy too. So sometimes, like Carol's saying, it's just the acknowledgement, allowing it, and
Yeah.
trusting.
Just start every sentence with, this might sound crazy, but
There you go.
Um, I mean, that's how I used to start them all the time, and then somebody, that's not crazy. That actually makes sense. So, it's kind of our caveat before you say something. And I'm not saying that you should always do that, but it is kind of funny that how many times we say this might sound crazy, but, and then it ends up being absolutely not crazy at all. Our logical mind wants us to think it's crazy, and it's not. Not at all. Yeah.
And if it's a literal voice that you're talking about, like hearing a loved one, I always tell people listen for the tone. It should be in their tone of voice, their language, their words. It should sound like them. That's
Hmm.
how you know it's them.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's clairaudience. When you can
Yeah.
hear their voice, the intonation, the volume, the accent, that's called clairaudience. If it comes through just as a thought where it's more monotone, that's a little different, and that's called claircognizance.
Yeah.
So just so you know the difference there.
Equally powerful, equally workable. And again, like we said, that's what through training mediums are doing, is learning how to turn on and access it like a well-oiled machine, all of the clairs to be working together. And
Yes.
that's when we're doing readings, that's how it functions for both of us.
Mhm.
One person may be a better communicator in terms of speaking, one may be showing us more, one may be giving us more physical feelings in the body, but typically what's happening is all of those simultaneously, and our attention is kind of like a ping pong ball going
Hmm.
to all different things. So and we can't get it all of our out of our mouth. See, I can't even get that out of my mouth.
Fast enough. Yeah.
We can't get it all out of our mouth. So there's times too when they will even share us with something, but the other part, maybe they're showing me a picture of a red dress that they used to wear, but also singing a song to me. And so I'll start talking about the song they're singing to my client. And then they'll say, oh, she always did that in a red dress. And it's like, "Eek, yeah, I couldn't even get that out because there's just so much going on." But I'll go, oh, yeah, I saw her in the red dress.
Yeah.
You don't get credit for that, though, if you
Yeah.
don't say it first.
It's using all the senses together, and you train yourself to be able to receive in all the different ways at the same time. So, yeah,
Yeah.
take some training, take some development
Yeah.
for sure. It's not something that you learn like this. Yeah. So,
But like Carol said, be curious. Curiosity is the way to go.
mhm.
How much will classes be and how long do they go for? To be determined, but they will definitely come out with information at the end of the spring and summer. I usually aim for 6 to 8 weeks. That's pretty typical for me anyway. And I think mostly for Carol when you do them like that as well. But Carol does a lot of 3-day weekend
I do a lot of
courses.
weekend
Yeah.
courses. Yeah.
Come have a transformational weekend and then get whipped back to your real life. Which I
Yeah.
think is actually amazing because everything looks different. You've tried on new glasses and you can't take them off. But to be determined. Thank you for asking. We'll follow up with emails. Um, all right. And then, oh, do we have any more questions? No.
No more
Shocking. This
questions?
is when it always happens. And then somebody finally will poke through and then we'll get like 10 more questions.
Yeah.
Um,
But it is 7:59,
oh,
so
fair enough.
I think that since it doesn't look like we have any more questions, we can go ahead and do a little giveaway.
I think we should.
Okay. I'm gonna
So I
look.
think we had two. Well, you talk about the contest first.
Okay, so some of you may have seen this online or in emails or something, but we basically did a contest that if you signed up for this and showed up for this, and then there were some other things that you could get extra entries in, whether it was sharing it on social media, liking the post, things like that. That it gives you a few extra entries in it. So we're going to give away a copy of the workbook that Karissa brought up, my Let's Get Into It workbook. And it has a couple of meditations in it and then some exercises and an explanation of what intuition is, how it might come through to you, what's the difference between intuition and the ego voice. So Susan, that might be a good one for you, like to look through that, and maybe that might help you too. But yeah, so we want to give away a copy of that. So, Carissa, do you have a winner for us?
I
And you have to
do
be
because
present
we
to
need,
win. So if this person's
yes,
not here,
she is. And that's why we made sure that it was somebody that matched all the little special coordinates, but it's Janet Bunday. So I hope I said that correctly. But you will get an email and congratulations.
yeah,
And
great.
we also
Hi, Jen. Oh,
decided to throw in.
yeah, we have one more gift.
We do. We have an event coming up. I'm sending the link there for anybody that wants to look at it in the chat. We have an online messages of love event next week that we are doing. So if you want like a low cost way of seeing messages, seeing us work as mediums, maybe get a message, but also benefit mostly from hearing other people's messages too. It's a great way to experience that. I don't think the stories ever get old for a lot of you that come every time. We love you, we appreciate you, and we know that you're junkies like us for the stories because everybody's got something new to say. And we decided to go ahead and pick a winner to give a free ticket away for that too.
Yeah.
So go for it, Carol. You get to pick.
Oh, I don't know
Or
how to do that.
wait,
You
I
have to
think
do
we had
it.
the name. Yeah, I was going to say, I think we had the two names because we did put them into a spinner thing. Let me go back. It is Susan Petard. Susan
Oh,
Petard.
there you go, Susan.
So, oh, I don't know if that was the same Susan asking the questions.
Yes, it
There's two
is.
Susans.
It was.
Oh,
It
oh,
was
wow.
Susan.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Works out.
Perfect. We do have one
Thanks.
more question on here. So,
Yeah.
Susan, you'll get an email too, to get that free ticket for next Thursday night's event, the Messages of Love that we're going to be doing online. There's one more question here. How would you recommend suggesting a reading to someone who does not believe? Well, first of all, that event might be a good thing just to come and observe, to see how Carissa and I work. But there's, if you're coming for a reading, I, I always think it's healthy to be skeptic. Not so healthy to absolutely refuse to accept anything. If the medium is giving you information and 9 of the 10 pieces fit with your loved one, if you're just going to refuse to expect or to accept any of it, then it's not the medium's job to prove anything. Yes, the medium needs to give evidence so you understand who the person is, but you have to be open to receiving too. And sometimes there is a mistake in some of the information because guess what? We're humans. We make mistakes. We might misinterpret something that's given to us. That squirrel thing that happened with me. If I hadn't really noticed that it was a squirrel and I said chipmunk, I would have been wrong. I would have gotten that information wrong, and it would have been my perception of it that got the information wrong, not what the father was trying to show me. So do understand that, if you get 10 pieces of information and the majority of them connect with your loved one, don't just dismiss it all because all 10 pieces weren't exactly right. Skepticism is healthy, but absolutely refusing to accept any of it is not going to do you any good, to come for the experience either. Carissa, you look like you want to say something.
Oh, no, I was agreeing with you. I was just going to say, agreed. If somebody's shut down, there's really no way for you to make that recommendation. You can share your experiences, recommend a book, recommend watching, something online, whether it's a TV show or one of these live events to sort of help their perception open up. And you'd be surprised, a lot of people, especially through loss, will change their mind. So some people that would never be open to it 2 years later, all of a sudden are going, I'll give it a shot. I got nothing to lose. But that's really what it takes is sort of open-mindedness. Otherwise,
Yeah.
it can create more resistance. Not most of the time, but like Carol's saying, you have somebody that is betting on it not working, they will find a way to convince themselves that it's not real. And then they're a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Like it didn't work. I knew it wouldn't work. It definitely doesn't work. It's not real. So sometimes, you got to judge the situation as tenderly and as carefully as you can. But I just say suggestions in terms of opening up your spiritual view and the conversation first is the way to go.
Yeah.
But it's a tough one. So great question.
It is a tough one. And I just want to address the side of it for people who are developing their mediumship and their psychic abilities and stuff of just knowing that if you're giving readings to people, your job is not to prove anything. You are the vessel of communication. You are just there to give what you're receiving. And if you put that burden on yourself of, I have to prove this to people, whether it's for people who are paying for readings or to friends and family, then that is your ego wanting to prove. It's not your soul. And when we do this work, we want it to be soul to soul connections. So as hard as that is to let the ego go and let go of this feeling of I have to prove something to somebody, if you're just giving whatever you're receiving, there's no need to feel proof that you have to give proof, but you are providing evidence. And that's, and that's exactly what you're doing in the soul to soul connection. It's not about you looking really good as the medium. It's just, you're just the vessel, So.
Yeah, because our souls, all of our souls know that this is real. All of our souls know that mediumship and soul to soul communication is fundamentally true, but we forget that coming here, and we forget a lot of things coming here. We allow ourselves to sort of drink the Kool-Aid of earth, if you will, right? And so some people are their pain just makes them that much more resistant to remembering things that may be true. But that's all we're really asking people to do is to get to a space where they can remember their own truth that you are more than just your mind, your body. You here are a spirit incarnate.
Well, thank you everybody for hanging with us tonight. I know we went a few minutes over there, but we appreciate everybody's questions and for listening in on the conversation. If there's things that you want to ask about for future ones, like a certain topic that you'd like to send us that you want to hear more about, we would love those ideas because we have another one that we're planning to do in May, right, Carissa?
Yes, the next, and we'll send out an email to let everybody know these are going to continue to be free, and we're intending to keep them to more regular and predictable. So our next date will be Wednesday, May 13th, same time, 7 p.m. Eastern. And if you want to reply to the email that we send out tomorrow with any topics that you want to hear, feel free to do that. And until then, we will hope to see some of you next week. I also have an in-person event that will be here in Lowell, Massachusetts this Sunday. If anybody's local and would like to come have a group reading in person, which I'll send out some information, or we'll just send out one email that has all of this, and we will be working on our book recommendations to make sure that we have a few to put out there too. But yes, any topics, any ideas are welcome.
Y'all take care. Have a wonderful night.
Yes, thank you for joining us. Take care, everyone.